hot when the Jehovah's Witnesses came. Their names were Danny and Madeline, and they came around noon on Saturday. He looked like a wreck, and he let him in. They were middle-aged and well-scrubbed, and they said that it was wrong to use the cross as a Christian symbol, when actually it dated back to the pagan gods of Babylon. Besides that, they said, Christ wasn't crucified on a cross anyway. He was crucified on a long stake or a pole. And besides that, even if he was crucified on a cross, wasn't it weird that the instrument of his murder should become a venerated object placed on the altars of churches everywhere? When they left, Danny wrote on a little piece of paper from a notebook, Danny and Madeline Leninsky, Jehovah's Witnesses, 943-1824. But on hot summer nights with the windows open, Carter could hear big jet planes coming in and going out over the house and the noise made by the fan. In his backyard that night, some pervert tried to rape the little girl who lived next door. She was assaulted successfully by two boys when she was 3 years old, the mother of the girl told Carter that night. Now this isn't good. Meanwhile, the girl shook and sobbed and held Carter around the waist as tight as she could. By the curb, two police cars parked and kids on bicycles gathered around. In the back seat of one of the cars, a bearded guy in his late 20s sat handcuffed to the partition between the seats. I can't take much more of this, Carter. I really can't take much more of this, said the mother of the girl who had been assaulted when she was 3 years old. David, go get my Valium from off the washing machine and get a glass of water, please. You gonna give Shelly a Valium, Mom? Just go, David. The little girl tightened her grip. Carter stroked her hair. Honest to God, I can't take much more of this, Carter, the mother said again. On TV, a grossly overweight woman sang Toyland while in a playpen behind her, a bald-headed man wearing a diaper wrestled with a pretty young girl dressed in what seemed to be a pornographer's conception of a white nurse's uniform. Soon, these two were joined by a dwarf dressed to look like a doctor. The fat woman sang, appearing unaware of what was taking place behind her. Some seconds later, the fat woman's voice became drowned out by the tracked laughter of an audience that didn't exist. The fan rattled in the window. Outside in the night, heat lightning flashed white like a slow, irregular strobe. drink, take some time to think about it. If you don't treat it right, it's sure to take flight. A human heart, some people have them. On a winter's day, in an empty cafe, just me and the barmaid and the memory of you. My soul possessed by a love magnificent in the days of summer. If it wasn't so downright funny, the thought of going to bed with Helen Vosloo could make me vomit. I had to think about it though, because earlier that day she called Joey and told him that Ernie Gogol said that I said that she, Helen, was good in bed. Paul laughed. Now either Helen lied or misunderstood something Ernie said, or Ernie lied or misunderstood something you said, or you're lying and you really did say it. I wouldn't fuck her with a rubber dick, Joey said. And I had to laugh at that. But outside offered less relief than the inside did. The sun. Thin cotton curtains hung limply in open windows through which no breeze had blown even slightly in hours. Joey's scratchy couch, which doubled as a bed for him at night, felt chafing and uncomfortable, and the stagnant air seemed heavy and motionless and semen-like. My armpit smelled like a cunt. This would be the last hot day. There's yelling in the street below. Dago women, fat and bulging out of shorts and sleeveless bandolon shirts, and colored women with metal pins painfully holding and setting their hair, yelling at children and dogs and cooking lasagna or chicken in oppressively hot kitchens, finished in peeling yellow linoleum and chrome and vinyl. Nothing is comfortable here ever, I think. It's always too hot or too cold, and the food's never really what you'd call good. The chicks are always ugly and stupid, as are the situations you find yourself in with them. This place is called Collinwood, and it's a neighborhood of row houses on the east side. The people who live here stare at you and hate you from their front porches as you walk by, because you're walking and they're just sitting there. Outside, a radio played loudly for a moment. The governor claimed that his left eye was swollen and red for 3 days after being hit with the pie, and denied during cross-examination that the irritation was caused by his hair dye. Coming up next, a student kills his teacher, it said. We laughed. You should write that down, Paul said, and I did, in one of those long brown reporter's notebooks I used to keep. But it's too hot to talk. Sweat beads on temples and upper lips, and the eyes stare vacantly at nothing. The old lady who lives downstairs moves slowly about in her area, and you can hear her shuffling from one room to the other, getting milk for her cats and crabari for herself. She's drunk all the time, and that's why she rented a Joey after he moved out of my place. We left for the club before it was even dark. Now sound check went good, but that never meant anything. We hung around for a while after and then went to a diner for dinner. And then we just drove around. There's no place like show business. With sundown, things cooled off, and the streetlights hung like pearls on the basic black of night. It was still kinda early, but we headed back for the club. We were opening for the ridiculous social snobs, and there were sure to be a lot of people there. We just couldn't stay away. And across the crowded dance floor, behind the smoky glass of the control booth, I saw Helen Vosloo, grotesque and animated, talking at someone whose face I couldn't see. The gin I'd ordered arrived, and I walked quickly back to the dressing room. Soon we would go on, and soon it would be over. And maybe it'll be good, I remember thinking. lust-in husbands, the creeps and sluts I understand. I'm here to serve you, to save your world. Your every wish is my command. And sometimes they feel my eyes on the back of their neck. A little voice crying, watch out dear. Terminal fear, I'm a nervous wreck. Excess has daunted my career. My job is to watch them destroy themselves. The pieces end up in my report. The sport is in seeing how they fall, and apart from that, I'm sad to say I've seen this all before. So, how are you and how do you do? It's like a taste of heaven to be with you. Here's a toast long overdue to the reckless, ragged, wrecked ingenue. Actions have equal reactions, and you can always count on a price to pay. I don't want to own you, I don't even want to rent you. All I want to do is have my own way. Who wants it? Who needs it? Your paradise is overpriced. A capital improvement wouldn't help my rise in discontent, and I can't afford the payments on this merchandise. Dame, and I was a shadow. Picked her up, coming out of the shoe store. Stayed behind as she stopped her window shop. I killed her half a pack while she stayed at the pawn shop. Stopped to reload as she entered the Empire State. Saw the indicator stop at 108. And if she dies cause I'm too late, well that's like my whole reputation shot to hell. That's too tough, it's just she played me for a set before. I won't be one anymore, so actions have equal reactions. You can always count on a price to pay. I don't want to own you, I don't even want to rent you. All I want to do is have my own way. Back in hell. Work was hell and he came home and it was hell. He took the long way home and stopped off for gas. He made him sick. His stomach was in knots and he had pains in his chest. He thought that if he had to live like this, he didn't want to live. But this wasn't living. It wasn't anything. He wasn't even him. Not in hell. He was some pressure in the back of his head that only went away when he was alone, high, driving to and from work. When he was Nick, whose mother was Virginia and whose father was Dane. Thought back to a long time ago. Once he had gotten a hold of a prescription for 60 Thorazine, but he didn't have the money to get it filled. A girl he knew said she would do it. Take the script to the drugstore and pay for it in return for half the pills. But she burned him. He didn't see her again for months. He would have wondered whatever happened to that girl. Except that he married her 5 years ago, so he knew that she was upstairs in her bedroom. He hadn't thought about that Thorazine in a long time, but now it seemed like it just happened, and he smiled to himself. The washing machine in the kitchen made the apartment sound and vibrate like the engine room of a small steamer, and he felt her looking at him. Looking from the stairway. But when he turned his head, she was not there. Now she came, standing near his chair for a moment, as if to take a cigarette from her pack on the table next to him. But he pretended to read, and she went into the kitchen where he watched her dark reflection on the screen of the turned-off TV as she fixed him a cup of coffee. He watched her like a show. "Thank you," he said, as she brought him the coffee. It was all predestined, or so it seemed to him, somehow inescapable. She went upstairs and after a while came back down. "This is really bizarre," he said, "because just last night I had a dream you were wearing that." And she wanted to make up too. "Let's not fight like this anymore, baby," she said in his ear. "I hate it when we fight." It was warm, about 50 degrees. The snow had melted and it was cloudy and dark and gray and humid. There was an atmosphere. Some old friend of Bunny's showed up at the animal farm with morphine and Kirsten started shaking and Willie said, "Let's take a walk, baby." She had been there 3 days and hadn't had any dope in all that time. No heroin or morphine or Demerol or opium. It was the longest she'd gone in a while, just trying to kick. There were little hard areas on the insides of her arms from hitting up, but otherwise she was soft and beautiful. She was 5 feet 3 inches tall and weighed 100 pounds. You read it on her driver's license. She wore a black motorcycle jacket, black jeans and boots. Had the whitest skin he ever saw. She'd been in a car crash the other night and had on dark glasses to cover her black eye and the stitches above her eyebrow. They walked around the block and up the hill to the little Baptist graveyard they had there, and Willie watched Kirsten dance this little spinning dance among the ancient tombstones. She bobbed up and down. The stones were white or dark gray and stood from a few inches to a few feet above the wet green grass. That night he got drunk and trashed his room. He was trying to help her kick heroin and he was nothing but a fucking drunk himself. It was pitiful. When he woke up in the morning, she was gone. He called her name, but she was gone. Later he found out that Debbie had called during the night and that Kirsten had answered the phone. Debbie had cried and called him a monster and the devil. Maybe he was a monster and the devil. He began to look more and more like that every day. He thought about Monty Clift and his new face, and the way he got in car crashes and died. Or was it about some guys? He tried to call Kirsten again and again, but there was no answer. Finally, she called him. She said she loved him. The nightclub was dark and crowded with friends and would-be friends and enemies, and there wasn't a girl there as good-looking as Kirsten or a guy as good as Willie. Everybody wanted to talk to him. Either they wanted to get Willie into a band or they wanted to get Kirsten into bed or both. What a hoot.
At one point, the singer of the band who was playing introduced Willie and handed him a mic, and Willie got up and sang a song and people danced. Most of the people they talked to handed them business cards and napkins with telephone numbers on them. When they got home, they emptied these from their pocket and made a pile of them in the big ashtray on the nightstand and lit them on fire. They laughed and turned out the light and didn't leave the house again for the rest of the weekend except to get cigarettes and liquor. That morning in Tripoli, Yasser Arafat was making his stand against the mutinous Syrian-backed forces opposing him. Mutineers had driven him from the camp he'd held on the outskirts of the city and were now pounding Tripoli itself with 30 shells a minute. Willie watched it on the tube. Grad rockets firing from the backs of trucks. Young Arabs in tattered fatigues firing AK-47s around corners or carrying wounded comrades on makeshift stretchers. Arafat said he could hold the city for 2 months. Poor bastard, Willie thought. I thought I had a bad year. Outside it looked just about the same in the afternoon as it did in the evening. The sky steel gray, and bitter cold, too cold to snow even. When Kirsten came that night, she brought a pint of CC. He didn't even like CC. She was a beautiful thing. There was an atmosphere. Someone, a friend of Bunny's, showed up at the animal farm with morphine, and Kirsten started shaking, and Willie said, "Let's take a walk, baby." She told the craziest stories. She'd been there 3 days. A guy tried to set her on fire once, and a friend of hers got machine gunned in his car. Heroin or morphine or Demerol, junkie stories. She was so beautiful and tiny and fragile and young. She was trying to forget everything else and be comfortable. Now she laid close to him on the bed. There were little heart areas on the insides of her arms from hitting her on the forehead. But otherwise, she was soft and beautiful. Oh, Willie, I get so scared 3 inches tall and weighed 100 pounds. Willie read it on her driver's license. Me too. She wore a black leather motorcycle jacket, black jeans, and boots. She's probably the most honest girl he ever saw. She told him right up front. She'd been in a car crash the other night, had on dark glasses to cover her black eye and the stitches above her eyebrow. He thought, but he doubted it. They walked around the block and up the hill to the fucked up graveyard they had there. But Willie watched Kirsten dance this little spinning dance. Now the light was out, the TV was on, and some all-night news show was running footage of the space shuttle landing. Stones were white and dark gray and stood from a few inches to a few feet above the wet green grass. Sigh in her throat. Willie was resting on his elbow, smoking a cigarette and watching her. He was trying to help her kick heroin, and he was nothing but a fucking drunk himself. He touched her black hair with his hand. He kissed her on the cheek. When he woke up in the morning, she was gone. He called her name, but she was gone. At 7:30 that morning, they sat in the living room at the animal farm, cracking open a 12-pack they just brought home from the mini-mart. Kirsten made some eggs, sunny side up. Well, we could go sit on my bed and watch a Today Show, he said. I don't think I'm ready for today, she laughed. They They went and laid on his bed underneath the warm blanket, kissed and laid
Debbie
heavy
cried
TV
and
on,
called him
hardly
a
even
monster
holding
and
their
a
heads
devil.
up until 2 that afternoon.
Maybe he was a monster and a devil.
It was great.
It began to look more and
They
more like
finally
that
did get
every
up. They
day.
walked down to the liquor store and bought a fifth of Canadian Club, stopping again at the mini mart on the way home, where Willie got some big cans of ravioli and chili and some hot dogs with some food stamps he had. They got back and Kirsten called in sick to her job and Willie started cooking chili dogs in a big pot of ravioli. They drank the CC straight, chasing it from a big tumbler of water. It took about an hour to kill that fifth. Willie dished up 3 big
He thought
plates
about
of
Monty
food and
Clift
sat
and his
down
new
with Bunny
face,
to a good supper.
and the way he got in car crashes and died. What was it about some
When
guys?
he woke up, she was gone. Her set
He
lingered
tried
on
to
his
call
pillow.
Kirsten again and again, but there was no
Bunny
answer.
sat in the living room reading a comic
Finally,
book
she
and
called
grunted as
him.
Willie walked in.
She said she loved him.
Where's Kirsten? She went out about a half hour, 45 minutes ago, Bunny said. Where'd she go? I don't know. Willie put on some coffee. She coming back? Tried to sound casual. She said she'd be back in an hour or so. He knew she'd gone to cop. He trudged up the stairs, pissed off at himself. He'd let her drink him under the table, and now she was down on 55th Street looking to score. He went in the bathroom and got undressed, turned on the hot water and took a shower. Kirsten was gone. The yards and the sidewalks were white with snow, and the streets were black and
Lake
wet.
County cable television,
Snow
mom
kept
and
falling,
dad,
big soft flakes that looked like one of those glass balls kids get for Christmas that you shake up. Ann had gone to visit a sick friend, and Bunny was downtown, and Willie was alone in the house, drinking coffee from a big mug and trying to keep warm. He had a cat on his lap. The furnace had gone off sometime during the night, and it was just as cold out in the living room as it was out in the streets. He could see his breath. On TV, there was a rerun of Shelley Hack's second Charlie's Angels episode. Farrah Fawcett did a guest shot. She was under the spell of a charming conman jewel thief, and the Angels got involved in the case. There was a commercial for Alka-Seltzer Plus cold medicine.
That morning in
When she
Tripoli,
came back, that's just
Yasser
how it
Arafat
was.
was making his stand against the mutinous Syrian-backed
He let her in
forces
and kissed her
opposing
on the
him.
mouth and neck and head.
The mutineers had
He
driven
held
him
her
from a
close.
camp he'd held on the outskirts of the city,
I'm gonna be
and were
sick,
now
she
pounding
said,
Tripoli
covering her
itself
mouth
with
with
30
dashing
shells a
into the
minute.
kitchen. She
Willie
threw up
watched
in
it
the
on the
sink.
tube. Grad
baby,
rockets
he said,
firing from
putting
the
his
backs
hands
of
on her
trucks and
shoulders.
young Arabs in tattered
She was
fatigues,
shaking.
firing AK-47s
Her
around
eyes were
corners and
scared for a
carrying
second,
wounded
then she
comrades
smiled
on
and her eyes
makeshift
were
stretchers. Arafat
She put
said
her
he
arms
could hold the
around
city
him
for
and
2
held her
months.
there, and they rocked back and
Poor
forth.
bastard, Willie thought. And I thought I had a bad year.
I love you, he said. Poor you. You gonna be okay? She nodded her head.
When Kirsten
Still get a
came
drink,
that night,
she
she
said.
brought a pint of CC. He didn't even like CC. She was a beautiful thing. He let her in and held her
He
close.
walked down the hill to the 20th
But I
century
was really
bar.
getting better.
It was beautiful
The
out
lips
in the
still
snow.
hurt.
Kirsten ordered
sorry,
triple
baby, he
peppermint
said.
schnapps, and they downed 4 or 5
Don't worry, she
quickly and
smiled.
without thinking.
I'm getting $900 for this accident.
She paid up with a 50 and then
He
shoved
laughed
the
and they
change
kissed
into
again.
Willie's hand while she put on her jacket. Hold this, she said. He put the money in his pocket. When they got back to the animal farm, Bunny was there and Ann and Schliemann. Bunny was making some wicked remarks about Willie's misuse of the word juxtaposition. And everybody was laughing, and Willie flipped out his knife and hurled it across the room where it stuck in the wooden floor inches away from Bunny's bare foot. They laughed even harder.
The bathroom was freezing and Willie sat shitting on the old porcelain toilet, watching his breath mist as he exhaled.
Kirsten came into the room.
When he was done, he wiped his ass, but didn't flush, for a flush was to lower the water pressure sufficiently as to make taking a shower impossible. Give me my money, she said. Instead, he lowered the seat cover and reached behind the shower curtain and turned on the hot water. Don't do this to me. He went to the sink and looked at himself in the mirror and put some toothpaste on his toothbrush and brushed his psychotic drunken episodes. He got undressed in the cold and pulled back the shower curtain to get in and was horrified by a large pile of black cat shit beginning to run under the hot water. Go get it, I want my money. He gagged and turned off the water. You heard me, Buster. I want my money now. Damn cats. He almost laughed as paper and began cleaning out the tub. Go get it yourself, he said, picking up the lumps of black cat shit and dropping them into the toilet where they mingled with his own shit. A couple minutes later, hard to control his breathing, so the gagging got worse. I can't find it. Now give me my money. The last lump of smelly, sticky black cat shit into the toilet. He puked all over the bathroom floor. Don't play games with me, Buster. He couldn't help but laugh. Fuck you, I'm not gonna do anything for you until you stop talking to me like this. Each word misting in the frigid air in front of him. I want my money, you fucker. Turned the hot water on again and let it run till the murky water at the bottom missed his head by inches. And then he stepped in and pulled the shower. Then she was on him and trying to hit him, and he was holding her back. Kirsten, baby, he was saying, what are you doing? Think about what you're doing. Do you really think I would take your money? Look, I'll go get it. New Year's Eve came just before midnight. Willie and Kirsten walked down the hill expecting to go to the 20th century, but it was closed, so instead they went to the master plan bar, which was one block up. She was crying on the floor. Her feet made pointy little footprints in the snow alongside his. Almost dropped her. But he'd never seen a footprint so small or pointy. She cried and cried. He knew that he would be able to recognize it always there. They had been drinking since noon. The master plan was dark and crowded and rowdy. They were the only white people in there. They had drinks the bartender called Long Island iced tea, which contained gin, vodka, rum, tequila, and Korea, which was served over ice in tall frosted glasses with a slice of lemon and a maraschino cherry. On TV, delicious commercial for alcoholism treatment. Kirsten played some art. Some guy sat on the jukebox and laughed. I just got tired of waking up every morning with bruises all over my body. He sat with his back to the bar and watched. Fucking panty waist, she was beautiful. Who needs smiling? She crossed over to where he sat and threw her arms around his neck. He laughed and they kissed and they drank from their drinks. Willie bumped into an old gold-toothed guy sitting next to him and said, "Excuse me," and the guy said, "Oh, that's all right. My name's Ben. Happy New Year's to you." And Willie introduced himself and Kirsten asked Ben if he had any New Year's resolutions. Propped up on his elbows, reading a book. Not to drink anymore. She kissed him on the ear and the mouth, and he kissed her, and she threw her head back and smiled, and he leaned over and kissed her on the brow. Kirsten laughed, and Ben kept a straight face, and they drank. Closer, she had the prettiest smile and crowded the bar became. So easy. At New Year's, they hugged and kissed, and day or night she had on the house. And Willie went home happy as hell. He smiled and kissed her again, and the book fell off the bed. He told her it was 9 in the morning. They laid in bed and watched a program called Woman to Woman on TV. There were about 20 women sitting around talking about how not to say things you don't mean and can't take back during arguments with your husband. She was talking on the telephone in the kitchen. Kirsten and Willie smoked joints and laughed. From the living room, he heard her laugh. Then a game show called Wheel of Fortune came on, and then Dream House, and then the stupidest one of all, which was called Go. People won and lost thousands in cars, cash, and prizes. Kirsten and Willie stayed in bed all day. He knew it was getting late when the evening version of Wheel of Fortune came on. It was the same as the daytime version, except that the host and hostess, Pat Sajak and Vanna White, wore evening clothes. "I think I'm ODing on TV," he said. "Stop shaking, Han," she commanded. He cracked up laughing. Finally, she got up and took a shower, and then he did, and then they walked together down to the mini-mart for a 12-pack.
He had read somewhere, or somebody had told him that Schlitz had the highest alcoholic content of any domestic beer, and so they got Schlitz. It was bitter cold outside, and his ears burned in the icy wind. They walked back up the hill, hand in hand, smiling. They might even have been happy.
He just knew it made him happy to see her.
The windows of the houses on the street all glowed with
some
electric
all-night
light.
news show was running footage of the space shuttle landing at Edwards Air Force Base.
Dads were coming home from
Kirsten
work.
was asleep and
Sitting
made a little
down to
sigh in
dinner
her
with their
throat.
families.
Willie was resting on his elbow, smoking a cigarette and watching her.
She was beautiful.